Dear listeners, imagine this pitch-black night, rain pouring like endless tears. A small boy sits alone in the corner of a broken hut. His body is trembling. His eyes stare blankly at the cracked bamboo wall. The cold wind cuts through the holes in the roof, making the old rafters groan like a silent cry for help. There is no mother to hold him, no father to comfort him, only thunder in the sky, and a hollow emptiness in his chest. But in the heart of that sadness, something stirs. A soft sound comes from deep within the forest, a sound that will change everything, a faint cry from a white chicken. But before we begin, please support this channel by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Your support means so much to us and keeps us excited to share more powerful stories with you. And of course, thank you so much to those who have already supported with your likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. You are an important part of this storytelling journey. Also, don't forget to check in through the comments. Let us know where you're listening from, so we can see how far our stories have reached. Now let us continue with the story. His name is Rafi, a 9-year-old boy who has no one left in this world. When he was just 5 years old, his house was swallowed by flames. His parents died inside, while little Rafi was found alive under a burned wooden table. From that day forward, nothing in his life was the same. The villagers believed he brought bad luck. Every house he stayed in was soon struck by disaster. Crops dried, livestock died, wells turned black. No one wanted to take him in. So Rafi lived alone at the edge of the village, in a collapsing hut left behind by his parents. Each morning, Rafi woke before the sun. He walked to the market, collecting leftover vegetables and spoiled rice thrown away by vendors. If he was lucky, someone paid him a little to carry water or gather firewood. But most of the time he only got cold stares or cruel words. Even so, Rafi rarely complained. At night, he sat by a small fire, hugging his knees, staring at the sky through a hole in the roof. There, in the silence, he whispered to Aloe, asking why his life was like this, why everyone left, why he had to be so completely alone. Until one cloudy afternoon, everything changed. That day, the sky was heavy with gray clouds. Rafi had gone into the forest to collect firewood. The damp wind shook the old branches above. He stepped over puddles and tangled roots. Then suddenly, he heard a strange sound. Kek kek. Rafi turned. It sounded like a chicken. He walked slowly, lowering his head, parting the bushes carefully. Under an old tree, trapped in a thorny bush, was a white chicken. Its leg was caught, and one wing was injured. Its feathers were dirty and wet. But what struck Rafi most was the chicken's eyes. They looked full of fear, as if it was silently begging for help. Rafi moved closer gently. "It's okay. I won't hurt you," he whispered. Carefully, he freed the chicken from the thorns. He took off his torn shirt and ripped part of it to wrap around the bird's wounded wing. The chicken didn't resist. It just stared at him quietly. Rafi smiled faintly. "I'll call you Pippet." That day, Rafi walked home carrying Pippet in his arms. And from that moment on, his life began to shift. Pippet slept beside him, ate with him, and followed him to work. When Rafi went to the market, Pippet waited at the edge of the road. When he fetched water, Pippet rested in the shade. For the first time in his life, Rafi did not feel alone. But the true miracle happened a week later. Very early in the morning, Rafi woke up to feed Pippet. But when he opened the straw nest where Pippet slept, his eyes widened. there lying still, was an egg. But not an ordinary egg. It was golden, glowing, cool to the touch and surprisingly heavy. Rafi held the egg with trembling hands. "This is gold." He didn't know what to do. He hid the egg under the bamboo floor. The next day there was another one, and another the next day. Quietly, Rafi started selling the golden eggs in the next town. He bought rice, clothes, and fixed part of his hut. But he still lived simply. He did not waste the money. He even used the extra gold to help the sick and repair the village well. But not every eye looked at him kindly. Some villagers began whispering, "That boy, his clothes look too nice," one woman murmured. "He bought a whole sack of rice. Where did he get that money?" Another asked. Rumors grew, and among those whispers, one pair of eyes watched with burning jealousy. A man who believed he should be the richest, the most powerful, someone who could not accept a poor orphan suddenly living in comfort. His name was Mr. Surya, the wealthiest, most feared, and most selfish man in the village. And that very night, he followed Rafi home. Silently, in the dark, with a plan brewing in his mind. Mr. Surya stood silently behind the bushes, his eyes locked on the fragile hut at the edge of the forest. The wind rustled the trees, but he didn't move. His dark robe fluttered gently as he narrowed his eyes, waiting for the lights inside the hut to go out. That night, he had followed Rafi from the town market. He saw how the boy paid for a sack of rice with silver coins. Not copper, not trade, silver. From a boy who once begged for leftover cassava peels. It made Mr. Surya's stomach twist with envy. He clenched his fists, stepping closer. Inside, Rafi had just finished feeding Pipit. The little white chicken was growing stronger each day. Her feathers looked cleaner now, and her movements were quicker. Rafi had cleaned a small corner of his hut and lined it with soft straw for Pipit to sleep on. He didn't tell anyone about the eggs. Not even the kind herbalist who once gave him free herbs when he had a fever. This secret felt too sacred, too dangerous, too magical. But secrets are heavy things, and heavy things always sink. Eventually, as Rafi laid down that night, he whispered softly to Pipit, who nestled beside him. "You saved me," he said. "I was broken before you came. Had no one. Now I don't feel so empty anymore." Pipit made a gentle clucking sound, almost like a sigh. Rafi closed his eyes. Outside, Mr. Surya moved. Quietly, he stepped onto the old wooden porch. His boot creaked. He paused, waited, listened. Nothing. He peered through a small hole in the bamboo wall. Inside, the boy was fast asleep, curled up beside the chicken. Mr. Surya's gaze shifted around the room. He didn't see gold. Not yet. But he knew it had to be there. He would wait. He would come again. And when the time was right, he would take it. The next morning, Rafi woke up to the sound of birds chirping and Pipit pecking gently at his hair. He smiled and sat up, stretching. Then he looked toward the nest. His breath caught. Another golden egg. He picked it up slowly, carefully, and kissed it. Then he hid it beneath a wooden plank under his mat. He didn't know that just behind the trees, hidden between the branches, Mr. Surya was watching. And this time he had seen everything. 3 nights passed. Each night Mr. Surya crept closer, memorizing every movement. On the 4th night he brought someone with him. A man with a scar across his cheek and eyes that never blinked. His name was Darsa. Hired thief. Silent. Ruthless. Invisible. Mr. Surya whispered his plan, and Darsa nodded without a word. That same day, Rafi walked to the market as usual, Pipit following behind him. He wore his cleanest shirt, still patched in many places, but no longer torn. He used the money from the golden eggs to buy medicine for a coughing child in the village, and gave warm food to an old man who lived by the river. Some villagers began to notice his kindness, but others, poisoned by suspicion, only saw his new shoes. "He's hiding something," a man whispered to his wife. "Children don't get lucky. Not children like him." That evening, after returning home, Rafi felt uneasy. The air felt thicker. The trees seemed too quiet. He looked around as he entered his hut, then locked the bamboo door. Pipit clucked softly, as if sensing the same invisible weight in the air. That night Rafi had a dream. Forest burning. Scream. Then silence. And in the smoke, a golden egg cracking open, spilling not light but darkness. He woke in a sweat. Pipit stood on the edge of the nest, her feathers bristling. Then a sound. A whisper of movement. Inside. Too careful. Too smooth to be an animal. Rafi didn't breathe. He picked up a small wooden stick and crept toward the door. Suddenly, loud crack. The back wall of the hut broke open. Shadow moved fast. Pipit shrieked. Rafi lunged toward the nest, but Darsa was quicker. In one swift motion, the thief grabbed Pipit and a golden egg that lay near her. "No!" Rafi screamed. He grabbed Darsa's arm, biting it hard. Darsa cursed and shoved him into the wall. The world spun. Rafi hit the floor. Blood filled his mouth. By the time he stood up again, the shadow was gone. Gone with Pipit. Gone with the egg. Gone into the night. Rafi ran outside, barefoot, calling out into the trees. "Pipit! Pipit!" But the forest gave no answer. Only the wind. Only silence. His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the cold ground, shaking. The only warmth he had. The only friend he knew was taken. Because of greed. Because someone couldn't bear to see a poor boy smile. That night Rafi didn't sleep. He sat on the porch waiting. For a sign. For a miracle. For anything. Morning came, but his heart did not rise with the sun. Meanwhile, deep in Mr. Surya's large house, Pipit lay inside a locked cage. Her feathers were ruffled. Her eyes dim. The golden egg sat on a silk cloth, shining under a lamp. Mr. Surya laughed. "We will be kings, Darsa," he said. "We'll make her lay more. We'll build a palace of gold." But Pipit didn't move. She didn't eat. She didn't lay any more eggs. By the second day she was weak. By the third she didn't even lift her head. Mr. Surya grew angry. "Do something," he shouted. "Why isn't she laying eggs?" Darsa looked uneasy. "She looks sick." "Then fix her. Feed her. Threaten her if you must." But nothing worked. Because Pipit was more than just a chicken. She laid golden eggs not from force. Not from cages. Not from threats. But from love. From safety. From being with Rafi. And now, far from the boy who saved her, she was fading. And Rafi was preparing to do the unthinkable. He would go after her. Even if it meant walking into the lion's den. Even if it meant facing the man everyone feared. He had lost everything once. He would not lose her too. Not without a fight. The night air hung heavy as Rafi walked through the forest, barefoot, with only the moon to light his way. His lips were cracked. His feet bled with every step. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Every tree he passed whispered the memory of Pipit's soft feathers against his cheek. Every shadow reminded him of the moment she was torn from his life. Somewhere beyond the trees, behind thick walls and guarded gates. Pipit was trapped. And he would find her. He reached the edge of the forest by dawn. Beyond the hills, nestled in a wealthy corner of the town, stood Mr. Surya's mansion. It was tall and wide, with white stone walls, sharp black gates, and soldiers paid to keep people like Rafi out. Rafi hid in the tall grass and watched. He counted how many guards walked the path. He noticed which ones looked tired, which ones joked too much, which ones didn't pay attention to the back gate. Then he waited. Hours passed. His stomach grumbled, but he didn't eat. His heart pounded, but he didn't rest. The sun dipped lower. Shadows grew longer. And then, chance. 2 guards at the side gate wandered off, laughing at some joke about roasted chicken. Rafi moved. Silent. Quick. He slid through the side hedges, pressed his body flat against the stone wall, and crept along the edge. The grass beneath his feet was cold. He moved toward the back of the mansion where the storage rooms stood. There he found an open window. He climbed in. Inside, the mansion smelled of perfume and polished wood. The floors were too clean. The air too still. Rafi didn't belong here, and every inch of him knew it. But he didn't care. He tiptoed past silk curtains and golden-framed paintings. He could hear voices above him. Mr. Surya was shouting. "She hasn't laid a single egg in 5 days. I fed her everything." Darsa replied. "She's dying." "Then fix it. I didn't steal that chicken to watch her rot." Rafi's heart tightened. He followed the sound up the stairwell and into a narrow hallway. At the end, a heavy door stood slightly ajar. He peeked through. Inside a dim room lit by a single oil lamp was Pipit. She was lying in a cage made of silver bars. Her eyes were half open. She didn't move. "Pipit," Rafi whispered, barely breathing. Suddenly, the floor creaked behind him. He turned. Darsa. The scar-faced thief stood there, holding a tray of food. His eyes widened as he saw Rafi. "You!" But Rafi was faster. He leapt forward and knocked the tray from Darsa's hands. The sound of breaking plates echoed like a scream. Darsa lunged. Rafi ducked, ran past him, and dove into the room. He reached Pipit's cage and grabbed the lock. "Where's the key?" he cried. Darsa stepped in, blood on his cheek from a shattered plate. "I'll break your legs, boy." Rafi didn't listen. He grabbed a nearby metal rod and slammed it against the lock. Once. Pipit moved her head slightly. Her eye opened just enough to see him. Darsa roared and charged. Just then, Pipit gave a weak squawk. A tiny shimmer appeared beneath her. A golden egg, cracked in the middle, faint and fragile. Darsa's eyes flashed with greed. He dove toward the cage, ignoring Rafi. "No, that's mine." Rafi took the metal rod and struck Darsa's arm. Darsa screamed and grabbed his shoulder. The golden egg rolled out of the cage, stopped at Rafi's feet. He picked it up. It was warm. Not gold. Not treasure. A key. A real tiny silver key was embedded inside the cracked shell. Rafi shoved it into the lock. Click. The cage door flung open. He scooped Pipit into his arms. She was light. Too light. Her chest barely moved. "Hold on, Pipit. Please, hold on." Footsteps thundered toward the room. Mr. Surya burst in, flanked by 2 armed guards. "What is this?" he screamed. Rafi turned to run, but the guards blocked the door. "Nowhere to go," Mr. Surya sneered. He stepped closer, eyes wild. "You think this is your pet? This chicken belongs to me. That egg my egg. You ungrateful rat." Rafi backed into the corner, clutching Pipit against his chest. I never took anything from you. She came to me. She trusted me. You only see her for her gold, but she's not a machine. She's alive. Mr. Surya raised his cane and swung at Rafi. Crack. The cane hit the wall as Rafi ducked. He bolted past the guard, kicked over a table and ran out the door. One guard slipped on spilled oil. Rafi ran down the stairs, Pipit in his arms. The front door was ahead. He pushed it open, only to face two more guards. Trap. But just then, a shout came from outside. Stop! It was the town herbalist. And behind her, the old man from the river, the coughing child's mother, the butcher's wife, the market boy, all people Rafi had helped. They stood in the driveway, blocking the guards. This boy saved our lives. He gave my child medicine. He shared his food with me. Mr. Surya growled. He stole from me. That chicken. The herbalist stepped forward. No, he didn't steal anything. You did. From him. The crowd stood firm. And for the first time Mr. Surya hesitated. Rafi didn't wait. He ran. Down the stone path, through the gate, past the people who cheered his name. He didn't stop until the trees of the forest swallowed him again. Back in the hut, under the soft straw, Pipit rested once more. Rafi stayed by her side, feeding her drops of water, whispering gently, You're home now. You're safe. That night, the moon rose slowly over the forest. And under its pale light, Pipit opened her eyes. And cluck. Pipit began to recover slowly. Her feathers remained dull, and her movements sluggish, but there was light in her eyes again. Rafi prepared thin rice porridge, crushed wild berries, and soaked bits of corn he could find near the riverbank. Each day he fed her with careful hands, watching over her like a little brother tending to a sick sibling. He spoke to her gently, even when she did not respond. You remember this place, right? He whispered. You used to chase dragonflies here. I thought I'd go mad watching you jump around like that. Pipit blinked. A small twitch of her beak. No gold egg. No shimmer. But she was alive. That was all Rafi asked. Days passed, then a week. Rafi ventured deeper into the forest in search of food. The dry season had begun, and even the roots seemed to shrink away under the hardened earth. He climbed trees, sucked on sour leaves, and followed animal trails to hidden springs. Hunger scratched at his belly every night, but he did not complain. Sometimes, he would return with a few sweet palm fruits or fish bones the river otters had left behind. He shared it all with Pipit, who now stood and walked a little more each day. Her feathers began to shine again. Then, on a quiet morning filled with fog, Rafi woke to a sound. He opened his eyes and saw Pipit sitting on her nest, eyes wide, breathing softly. Beneath her, a golden glow. Not one, not two, but 3 golden eggs. Rafi sat frozen. His fingers trembled. The light reflected off the walls of the hut, warm and soft like sunrise. He touched one egg gently. It was warm and smooth. The shell gleamed like polished brass, but no reflection stared back at him. Only light. Pure, strange light. Pipit looked at him, then turned her head away, as if ashamed. No, Rafi whispered. You don't have to be afraid anymore. He wrapped the eggs in a cloth made from dried leaves and old bark, then buried them under the floorboards. Not for money. Not to sell. Just to keep them safe. But the moment he stepped outside, he knew something had changed. Whispers. From beyond the forest. At the edge of the trees people stood. Villagers, strangers, traders, dozens of them. Some carried empty sacks. Others held coins. Some had nothing at all but hunger in their eyes. Someone had spoken. Someone had told them. He turned sharply to see Farid, the market boy he had once helped, standing among them, looking down in shame. "I didn't mean to," Farid muttered. "They overheard me at the well. I only said." That pipit laid golden eggs again. Rafi's heart pounded. The crowd pressed forward. "Just one egg. My baby is sick. We'll pay, boy. Sell them. You can't keep that to yourself." He stepped back. Pipit clucked nervously behind him. "I don't want to sell anything," Rafi said. "She's not a treasure chest. She's my friend." They didn't listen. That night the first stone hit his roof. Then another. Then a brick. By morning the hut was surrounded. A group of men from the village council stood with arms crossed. Their leader, an older man named Samin, stepped forward. "Rafi, we helped you once. We stood against Mr. Surya. We protected you. Now you must return the kindness." "I never asked anyone to fight for me," Rafi said. "I never asked for anything." "That bird can save lives," another shouted. "Do you want people to starve while you sit on gold?" "It's not gold," Rafi snapped. "It's her soul." The men looked confused. Some laughed. Some glared. "We give you one night," Samin said. "One night to choose. Give us the eggs. Or we take her." They left. Rafi sat in silence. That night, Pipit did not sleep in her nest. She curled beside him, silent and still, as if she understood every word spoken. In the darkness, Rafi whispered, "I won't let them take you, even if it means running until we reach the edge of the world." But he knew it wouldn't be enough. He had fought men with weapons, with greed, with power. But now he was up against hunger, desperation, the kind that turns neighbors into enemies. At dawn, Rafi dug up the eggs and held them close to his chest. He walked to the riverbank, where the water ran strongest, and he threw them in. One by one, they vanished beneath the current. The gold, the glow, the reason for every nightmare. When he returned to the hut, Pipit looked at him. Just looked. Then climbed back into her nest, closed her eyes and slept. When the villagers arrived, they found the floorboards empty. The crowd shouted. Some tried to break inside. But Samin raised his hand. He chose. "The eggs are gone." Murmurs filled the air. But no one spoke further. Rafi stood in the doorway, broken but firm. "I won't trade her life for yours," he said. "If you think that makes me selfish, then so be it." The crowd left. But Rafi knew peace wouldn't last. Mr. Surya had eyes everywhere. And the river doesn't keep secrets forever. The sun had barely lifted its sleepy face above the forest canopy when the first sign of danger returned. Not from the villagers this time, but from a figure Rafi thought was long gone. A sound of hooves against dirt, the snapping of branches, and a faint echo of laughter that crawled like cold wine down Rafi's spine. Mr. Surya. Rafi spotted him from a distance, riding a large brown horse, flanked by two men wearing leather jackets, their faces shaded under dark caps. Behind them trailed a small wooden cart. Rafi's chest tightened. He instinctively stepped back toward his hut, his hands trembling. Pipit sensed it too. She hopped closer to the doorway, feathers ruffled, her eyes fixated on the approaching shadow. Mr. Surya dismounted with a dramatic grunt. He looked leaner, more aged, but the darkness in his gaze was just as poisonous. Well, the boy who bit the hand that fed him," he said, voice smooth like oil. I heard rumors. They speak of a magical hen that lays golden eggs. I thought, surely not the same filthy orphan I once offered kindness to. But here you are. Rafi stood tall, though his knees shook. I have nothing to give you. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. Surya smiled, stepping closer. You have everything. He walked past Rafi and glanced around the small hut. His eyes fell on Pipit, who stared back, unflinching. You know, I could have made you rich beyond your dreams, Surya continued. Instead, you humiliated me. Had me chased out by farmers and fishmongers. But power never truly leaves. It just waits. He gestured to his men. One of them pulled a long sack from the cart, wide enough to trap an animal. Rafi's heart raced. No, he stepped forward. You can't take her. I can, Surya replied, and I will. In a sudden flash, Rafi pushed one of the men aside and rushed to Pipit. He scooped her into his arms and ran, faster than he had ever run before, through the tall grass behind the hut, into the thick jungle where the trees knew him, where the paths bent to his feet. Branches scratched his skin, and roots tried to trip him, but he kept going. He didn't know where. He didn't care. As long as Pipit was with him. Behind him, the forest roared with curses and heavy steps. Mr. Surya and his men chased on horseback, though the dense forest slowed their advance. The smell of anger, sweat, and greed filled the humid air. Rafi reached the old banyan tree where he had once cried as a child. He placed Pipit down and looked around. The forest was different now. Older, thicker. As if it too had grown protective of the boy who once buried tears into its roots. Suddenly fire. Smoke curled into the sky. Scream. Then another. He climbed the hill to look back. His hut was on fire. They had burned it. Everything he had. Surya stood at a distance, shouting commands, frustrated that Rafi had escaped. Burn it all if we can't have her, he screamed. The villagers, upon seeing the flames, began to gather. Some came to help, carrying buckets of water from the river. Others stood, torn between fear and guilt. Farid was among them. He ran up the hill, his chest heaving, eyes wide. Rafi! I didn't know they'd go this far. Rafi didn't respond. He watched the flames, silent. I told them the eggs were gone, Farid whispered. I thought it was over. Rafi looked down at Pipit. She stood beside his foot, quiet but alert. Then he looked up at Farid. Nothing is ever over, Rafi said. Not with people like him. The fire was eventually put out. The hut was a black skeleton. Charred wood. Ashes. No roof. No future there. Rafi did not go back. He built a small shelter deeper in the forest, near the river that had taken the golden eggs. Every night he heard whispers in the leaves. Birds warning of movements. Animals shifting, restless. Pipit laid no more eggs. Not one. It was as if, by casting away the gold, she had reclaimed her freedom, her soul. And in that soul she chose silence. The villagers grew quieter too. Some came to apologize. Others offered food, tools, even help to rebuild. But Rafi refused. He did not want charity. He only wanted peace. But Mr. Surya, he did not disappear. One evening, while bathing near the river, Rafi saw something glinting beneath the current. Piece of gold. His heart sank. One of the eggs, carried by the current, lodged between rocks. Before he could react, a hand reached out behind him and snatched it. Stranger. Wet boots. Long coat. A grin too familiar. Rafi's voice caught in his throat. You. The man nodded. Yes, me. He was one of Surya's men. They're not all gone, boy. And the boss, he never forgets. The man turned and vanished into the trees before Rafi could stop him. That night Rafi did not sleep. Pipit sat on her perch, eyes wide. The forest was still. Too still. Then the sound of hooves, dozens, and torches. The hunt had begun again. And this time they weren't coming just for gold. They were coming for her. The moon hung low and heavy, its pale light struggling to pierce through the dense canopy above. The forest, which usually sang a chorus of night creatures, now lay unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no owls, not even the soft rustling of leaves. As if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Rafi sat in the small shelter he had built from branches, leaves, and mud. Pipit rested beside him, unusually still, her golden eyes wide and watchful. The air was thick with warning. Rafi could feel it in his chest, an old familiar fear pressing against his ribs. He did not speak. Words were useless now. He gathered his things silently. A small pouch of dried roots. A carved wooden whistle his mother had once made. A bundle of woven grass. And the tiny wooden statue of a hen that he had carved after Pipit first laid her golden egg. He placed them carefully into a cloth bag and tied it tight. In the distance, he heard the first snap of a twig, then another, like, purposeful. They were trying to move quietly, but the forest betrayed them. These men did not belong here. The trees did not know their names. Their steps were foreign, their breath impatient. Rafi touched Pipit's wing gently. She looked at him, and for a moment, he saw something that broke his heart. Fear. She trembled, not like a bird afraid of thunder, but like a mother shielding her child. He stood, picked her up carefully, and whispered close to her feathers. "We won't run this time. We'll hide, yes, but only until they pass. We are not theirs to take." He moved through the forest like a shadow, choosing the forgotten paths only he knew. Paths that curved behind ancient stones and slid beneath thick vines. Pipit nestled in the crook of his arm, calm, as if she trusted him more than she feared the men with torches. Then came the voices. "There's smoke here." He was close. "I swear I saw something move. Spread out. Do not let that bird out of your sight." Rafi quickened his pace. His breath was short now. He slipped down a steep ridge, his foot catching on a root. He stumbled but did not fall. Pipit let out a quiet chirp, almost a warning. He reached the hollow tree, an old hiding place he had used as a child when he ran from wild dogs and angry men. He slipped inside, crouching low. The hole in the trunk was small, just wide enough for his body and Pipit to rest beside him. Through a crack he saw the torchlight, flickering, growing. One man passed, muttering to himself. "Just a stupid hen. Why the boss wants her so badly, I'll never know." Another answered from the shadows. "He says it's not just the gold, says it's the power. That this bird, this thing, is part of a bigger secret. Some kind of forest curse or blessing." They laughed, but it was nervous laughter. They feared the forest. They should have. Suddenly, a whistle cut through the air. Sharp. Commanding. It was Mr. Surya. Rafi tensed. He dared not move. "Enough games." Surya's voice was full of rage. "We burn this forest to the ground if we have to." Silence followed. The threat hung in the air like a blade. "Start with the riverbank," Surya barked. "He always runs toward water." Rafi's heart sank. The riverbank was home to the creatures that trusted him. Deer, turtles, even the old crocodile with the broken tooth that once saved Pipit from a stray dog. If they set fire there, everything would burn. and it would be his fault. He whispered, "I have to stop them." Pippet looked up at him with eyes that didn't blink. He crawled from the hollow tree as soon as the torches faded to the east. He crept along the forest floor like a snake, avoiding every dry branch, every patch of loose leaves. He reached the riverbank in time to see the men piling branches and oil-soaked cloth. One of them struck a match. "No!" Rafi stood tall, his voice cutting through the dark like thunder. The men turned, startled. One dropped the match. "There he is! Get him!" Rafi ran, not away but toward them. He held Pippet high in one hand. "You want her," he screamed. "Then you'll have to go through me." The men froze. Not because of Rafi's words, but because of what they saw behind him. Dozens of glowing eyes blinked in the shadows. Not human eyes. The animals. The forest had awakened. Wolves emerged from the undergrowth, silent and graceful. A massive boar stomped out from the trees. Owls circled above. Even the crocodile from the river appeared, its mouth slightly open, teeth glinting in the moonlight. The men stepped back. "What is this?" one of them whispered. Rafi stood still, heart pounding. Then Mr. Surya appeared, flanked by his last two men. He laughed. "You think wild dogs and birds can stop us?" He raised his hand, ready to give the signal. A voice interrupted. "Enough." Farid stepped forward from the edge of the forest. Behind him more villagers. Old men with farming tools. Women with torches. Children with stones. They had come. Surya's smile faded. You traitors." Farid looked at Rafi. "We came to fix what we helped break." Surya shouted. "You fools! Don't you see? That bird is the key to..." Suddenly, Pippet squirmed in Rafi's arms. She flapped her wings violently, breaking free. She rose into the sky with a power they had never seen. Light burst from her feathers, bright and golden. Everyone shielded their eyes. And then one single egg dropped from the sky. Did not fall to Rafi. It landed at Farid's feet. Rafi watched in stunned silence. Pippet flew higher, beyond the trees, beyond the moonlight. And in her flight, she left no trail. Only silence. Only questions. Only one final golden egg. The golden egg lay still on the soft river soil, glowing faintly under the moonlight. It was unlike the others Pippet had laid. This one shimmered not just with value, but with something deeper, an energy that made the air around it thrum softly, as if it were alive. Farid stood frozen, his feet only inches from the egg. His eyes were wide, face pale, lips trembling. His mind, once clouded with greed and regret, now spun with confusion. He did not dare touch it. Behind him, the villagers slowly approached, their torches casting flickering shadows on the ground. They looked from the egg to Rafi, then to Farid, and finally to the place in the sky where Pippet had disappeared. Rafi, still panting from the chase and confrontation, watched silently. His heart felt empty. The forest had quieted again, but not with peace. It was a silence that left questions. What had Pippet done? Why had she given the egg not to him, but to Farid? Rafi approached slowly. Farid flinched as if expecting anger. I didn't ask for this," Farid said, barely a whisper. Rafi said nothing. Farid looked up. "I only came back because I knew I helped break you. I thought if I stood up tonight, I could maybe fix a piece of it." "You did," Rafi said. Farid's eyes filled with tears. "But that egg," he looked down again, "it doesn't belong to me." Rafi looked at the glowing shell. "Maybe it does. Or maybe it belongs to all of us. The villagers gathered in a wide circle, careful not to step too close. Mr. Surya was gone, vanished into the forest in the chaos. His hired men scattered. For now he was no longer a threat. But the damage he had done, the fear he had planted, still lingered in the air. An old woman stepped forward. Her voice trembled but steady. That bird, she chose where it would fall. There's meaning in that. We must honor it. But how? Another villager asked. We can't eat it. Can't sell it. What if it's cursed? No, Rafi interrupted. It's not cursed. It's a message. Pipit was more than just a hen who laid golden eggs. She was a creature of the forest, of Aloa's will. Her eggs weren't gifts. They were tests. The crowd murmured. Rafi knelt beside the egg. She tested my heart. And now maybe she's testing yours, he said, looking up at Farid. Not with what you'll do with the gold, but what you'll do with what's left of us. Farid fell to his knees. I don't want gold. Not anymore. I want to stay. Help rebuild. Help protect what's left. There was silence. Then a few nods. Then more. One by one, the villagers stepped forward, placing something in front of the egg. Stone. Flower. Carved charm. Not offerings of worship but of promise. A way of saying, we are part of this now. Rafi felt his chest tighten. For the first time in years, the loneliness that had wrapped around him like vines began to loosen. The forest had always watched over him. But now, people did too. They decided not to move the egg. A shelter was built over it from wood and vines. Rafi stayed by its side every day, tending the space, speaking softly to it as he once spoke to Pipit. Farid helped rebuild the broken huts. He taught the children how to listen to the trees and how to walk gently across the moss without crushing it. But things did not return to what they were. Rafi began to dream at night. Strange, soft dreams where Pipit's voice echoed not in chirps but in thoughts, in images, in memories. He would see her walking beside him in the forest, not as a bird, but as something larger, glowing with the light of the egg. In the dream she said nothing, but he understood. The egg was not just the end of her gift. It was the beginning of another. Months passed. Rain came and went. The forest bloomed again. The people who once feared it now came often, quietly, respectfully. They brought seeds to plant, tools to repair, stories to tell. But the egg never hatched, simply rested, pulsing softly, glowing gently. One night, Rafi sat alone beside it. He held the wooden statue of Pipit in his hand, thumb running across the carved feathers. He whispered, I miss you. The egg pulsed once, brighter than before. He leaned closer. Are you still in there? No answer. Just a warmth that spread up his arm. He looked to the stars. Maybe you gave us enough. Maybe now it's our turn. Farid joined him soon after, sitting quietly beside the shelter. They didn't speak much anymore, but they understood each other. Do you think she'll come back? Farid asked. Rafi didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, she never left. That night, the moonlight struck the egg in a perfect line. It glowed brighter than ever before. And somewhere, deep in the forest, the wind carried a sound. Not a chirp, not a cry, but a song. Eternal. And waiting. It began with a distant tremor. Not of the earth but of something older. Something felt more than heard. Rafi stirred from sleep in his small wooden hut beside the egg shelter. The candle by his side had melted into a puddle of wax. Night was silent, thick, expectant. He rose and stepped outside. The forest lay still beneath a silver moon, every leaf glazed in quiet light. The egg pulsed again. He walked toward it barefoot, the earth cool beneath his feet. As he approached, the glowing grew warmer, not blinding but soft, like fire behind silk. Farid was already there, sitting with his legs crossed, head bowed. He had not moved for hours. Rafi sat beside him. For a moment they said nothing. Then Farid whispered, "Something's happening." Rafi nodded. The trees began to sway though there was no wind. Insects ceased their song. A hush fell over the forest, not of fear but of reverence. As though all things knew they were standing on the edge of something sacred. From the trees came lights, tiny orbs like floating seeds of fire. They drifted slowly toward the egg. They hovered above it, surrounding the shelter in a soft halo. The egg pulsed once more. Heartbeat. Then another. The ground beneath them trembled again. Rafi stood. His breath caught in his throat. The villagers had begun to gather, drawn by something none of them understood. No one spoke. Children clung to their mothers. Men held torches low. No one dared step too close. Then, a hairline crack appeared on the golden shell. Gasps broke the silence. One woman clutched her chest. Another dropped her torch in shock. The crack spread, slow, deliberate, like a ribbon being unraveled. Then the shell began to peel open, bit by bit, as if some gentle force inside was unfolding it with care. And then they saw it. A tiny creature, not a bird, not entirely human, lay curled within the egg. Its body shimmered faintly gold, but its skin was soft, warm, alive. Its hair, barely more than fuzz, was the color of Pipit's feathers. Its eyes opened slowly, deep brown, shining with something older than age. The creature did not cry. It simply looked around, as if it already knew this place. Rafi stepped forward. Farid grabbed his arm, trembling. "What is that?" "I don't know," Rafi answered. "But I think it's who she became." He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, until he was by the creature's side. It blinked at him. And in its gaze, Rafi felt something flood his soul. Memories not his own, feelings not bound to this moment. He remembered Pipit's first egg. Her laughter. The way she had nuzzled his hand after each feeding. He remembered how she had looked back at him when she vanished into the forest for the last time. And somehow he understood. This was her gift. Not gold. Not wealth. But life. Second chance. He picked up the child. It did not resist. Its tiny hand reached for his shirt, gripping it tightly. Behind him murmurs began. Fear, awe, questions. But none stepped forward. Farid approached. "Is it human?" "I don't know. Maybe not entirely. But it's here now. It's ours." One of the older men, Pak Anwar, stepped forward. "What are we supposed to do with it?" Rafi looked around. "The same thing we failed to do before." He turned to the crowd. "We protect it." The village changed after that night. Not immediately. Fear still lingered and doubt. Some left, unable to bear the strangeness. Others stayed, drawn by something they could not name. The shelter was rebuilt into a home. Not large, just enough. Rafi lived there, raising the child they now called Dara, meaning light of the forest. Dara grew quickly, unnaturally quickly. By the time the moon had cycled only a handful of times, she could walk, speak, laugh. Her voice had a tone that made animals gather. Her eyes held wisdom that made the elders fall quiet when she spoke. She never cried. But sometimes in the still of night, she would go into the forest and sing, soft lullabies in a language no one taught her. And when she sang, the trees seemed to lean in closer, the leaves shimmered with dew, and time itself seemed to still. Rafi loved her. Not as a replacement for Pipit. Not as something holy. But as a child he had been given to protect, to guide, to trust. Farid became her uncle in all but name. He built her swings from jungle vines, taught her how to fish, how to plant, how to read the sky. The village, once broken by greed, began to heal under her presence. But not everyone forgot the past. One day a stranger came, a man in dark robes. Eyes too sharp, smile too smooth. He had heard the stories of golden eggs, of a glowing child. He offered gold, then land, then threats. Rafi refused. So the man returned with others, armed men. And on a night darker than most, they tried to take Dara. They never found her, because when they stepped into the forest, it swallowed them whole. None returned, not even bones. And from that day on, no one dared touch the heart of the forest again. Years passed. Dara grew. Not fast anymore but steadily. Her hair turned deep brown. Her laugh echoed through the trees. She became a bridge between two worlds. And one night, sitting beside the river, she asked Rafi, "Where do I come from?" He told her everything. She cried for the first time. And then she said, "I want to give something back." She stood, walked into the forest, and vanished. For 7 days she was gone. On the 8th she returned. In her hands another egg. Not gold, not glowing, but alive. And when she placed it in Rafi's hands, she smiled and said, "Now it's your turn." And the cycle began again. Not for wealth, not for power, but for remembrance. Of what the forest gave. Of what it chose to forgive. Of what it never wanted us to forget. Dear listeners, from this heartfelt and emotional story, we learn that life is not truly defined by wealth, luxury, or ease. Rafi, a lonely orphan with nothing but the forest around him, lived in silence and sorrow. But from that solitude grew something powerful: sincerity, patience, and unconditional love. The most important lesson from this story is that even the smallest act of kindness is never wasted. Pipit, a simple chicken, did not just bring golden eggs. She brought hope. She brought love. And ultimately, she brought new life that changed a broken village and healed the hearts of many. In real life, we may never come across a chicken that lays golden eggs. But we can choose to be like Rafi. We can be someone who stays honest even when the world tempts us with greed. We can be protectors instead of destroyers. We can be guardians instead of betrayers. We can become a light in someone's darkness, even when we feel we have nothing left to give. Every good deed, no matter how small, can become a seed that Aloe helps grow into something miraculous. Not always in the form of gold, but in blessings far more precious. Peace, love, and goodness that cannot be bought. This story is entirely fictional. It is a work of imagination written as if it were real, meant to inspire, motivate, and offer valuable reflections on life. It does not aim to promote superstition or magical thinking, but to open hearts and stir the soul with meaningful lessons. Thank you, dear listeners, for staying with us until the very end. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below, give it a like, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next inspiring story. See you in the next tale.